I mean, there's such a heavy loaded episode. I'm excited because I've been admiring Luta Gear and what you guys have been doing from a distance. But I do want to paint a picture for the listening and viewing audience, like a bit of the history. Maybe we'll start with Eddie, since you're at the top left. How did you find JJ? Were you training in jiu-jitsu before? Is this your first discipline?
Yeah, I was training in JKD, and I started at Cats Magda's Magda Institute. And the first UFC broadcast, and I had a big watching party at my house. I said, wow, this is really cool, because at the time there was multiple martial arts, Thai, kickboxing, JKD, all that stuff. And with every martial art kind of claiming that they were the most superior, the most deadly, I figured JKD was kind of like a mixture of all of them. And so we watched the first UFC, and I was like, oh my God, this is like a scientific experiment that really kind of tells you what's the most effective. And as to quote Eddie Bravo, this Iranian guy beat everybody. and, his name was Hoist Gracie, and it just clicked. I was like, wow, yeah, you take all these people to the ground, and now it's like somebody that can't swim in water. It was amazing. I signed up the next weekend down in Torrance at Hoist Gracie's place, him and Horian's place on Carson. And that was like an hour drive for me, and I was trying to find out if there's a place closer. And they said, well, they were right. This is the only place to learn Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. So, but then I actually called up Cass, my old JKD instructor, and he said, oh, what are you doing these days? I said, oh, I'm driving down to Torrance. I'm looking for a closer place that teaches Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And they said, oh, the Machados are up here. I'm like, what? And I immediately found Jaques, and never looked back.
That's awesome. And for the black belt of the interview of the trio right now, Neal, how did
Yeah.
you? Was jiu-jitsu your first discipline?
No, actually, the very, very absolute first discipline was Taekwondo. Actually, got to like a purple as a kid, and then I wanted to, the movies like Bloodsport came out, where there was an intriguing aspect of Muay Thai, like as Paulo Tocha would show in the movie Bloodsport. I was like, wow, that's so cool. And then and I know that Cass Magda was teaching it, because I was actually Eddie and I happened to be training at the Magda Institute. We may have overlapped presence there. So, but I don't know if he met me or we met each other, or
Yeah, we might have. We didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. There's no way to tell. I mean, but it's so long ago. So I went there because the things that like appealed to me were the Muay Thai, the Kali, the Silat, boxing and stick fighting. So yeah, stayed there for a little bit, and then I did some boxing in West Hollywood with where I opened a gym called Jab City with Marcus Johnson for a year, and then we went our separate ways, and then I just did some random training here and there, boxing, kickboxing, and then jiu-jitsu came as I got sober, because I'm currently, this year I turned 19 years sober.
Congrats.
Thank you. And that was one of the things that when you get sober, like one of the things you look forward to is the opportunity to reshape yourself. And I had some kind of a block as to what I could actually do. I didn't think that jiu-jitsu was for me, because I was like, I'm not committed enough. I'm not, whatever enough. And I was like, here I am, I'm sober now. There's no excuse. It's time to do it. So I started training with John Machado, Jean-Jacques' brother, and Miracle Mile. And then he moved from Miracle Mile to the Grove, and then from the Grove to Culver City. And then at the time, my wife was pregnant with our second child, and Jean-Jacques, we were living in the valley, and Jean-Jacques was around the corner, and I was like spending like 2 hours in traffic to get to and from John Machado's. So I was like, I need to make, more time to be at home. And that's when I moved to Jean-Jacques. That was, let's say, 07, 08. I came there as a purple belt.
I'm going to make a statement and I want you guys to react to it, because I feel like people who were maniacal about like stand-up arts understand BJJ and interpret it differently. Like, I'm not talking about hubad, lubad, lopsal, poxal, straight blast. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the congruency of wanting to learn everything and what's the most effective versus someone who's just baby born out of jiu-jitsu. Do you guys feel that it is a different vision and interpretation of jiu-jitsu because you guys come from this, being Southeast Asian? It's like, dude, someone's going to stab me. I better learn how to parry, run, and, check that. Or if someone kicks me, I better know how to check a kick or kick him in the balls. So do you guys, what are your thoughts about that statement about previous stand-up people now embracing the jiu-jitsu mania are different in perspective?
Eddie? Let me go first.
Okay. It's a great question because I can equate it to my day job. Okay. So I started off making monster stuff for movies, right? And we'd sculpt stuff out of clay and mold it, cast it in rubber, and take it, put it in front of the movie camera, and take it to the stage, and the directors and all that stuff, they would shoot it. Then Jurassic Park came out. And that was like digital, it was all computers. And like all of us were like, oh my God, we're out of a job. This thing's gonna take away our living, and none of us know how to use a computer. Very similar for my personal experience. It was like stand up, kick, punch, learning all this self-defense stuff, and big Bruce Lee fan, and that was so cool. And then, like I said, right after I saw the first UFC, I was like, oh crap, I gotta learn this other thing now. And I'd been training for years and thought this, I was so badass, and I was just playing the scenarios through my head. It's like, yeah, what if somebody took me to the ground? They're like, well, I would just punch the shit out of them, like, whatever. They wouldn't take me to the ground. And man, after my first few lessons at the Torrance Academy, I was just like, oh shit, I gotta dedicate a lot of time to this new thing. It was frustrating, but at least I understood it, and I knew this is going to be a long journey. But yeah, I mean, I think most people from stand-up or any kind of martial arts probably go through a similar thought process, and it's like sink or swim. It's like, are you going to be a complete fighter or not? Because it's such a big part of it. If you're going to learn how to fight, and then with the statement, 90% of fights go to the ground, and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and action videotapes, and it's sure enough, it's like, you think about it, it's like, yeah, I guess they probably do go to the ground, and you're just like, damn, I gotta get on this and spend a lot of time and money and dedication, but I never look back. I mean, it's amazing. So that's my personal experience. So.
Sir Neal.
Yeah. If I think for anybody, and I know a lot of the guys that the hardcore guys, there's no question that you're passionate about combat science. If you've done anything, if it's weaponry or striking, and then like Eddie keeps saying, I can relate. It was the UFCs definitely brought our attention to the grappling arts, jiu-jitsu. So and that was so impressive. That was like, well, if what I know isn't enough, I need to know what it is that's going to be. I want to do what these guys are doing. Taking somebody down. He's not even swinging at him. He's like controlling him. And I was like, I mean, if you're serious at all about fighting, that just has to be part of your studies, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I personally feel it's always in the back of our mind. I did 6 smoker fights, but
wow,
my first time training in jiu-jitsu was with Alfred Sevilla, Roll Dogs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And there's an old school guy named Roger. who looked a lot like Alfred. Also, they were both blue belts, and I couldn't do anything. And like what Eddie and you guys probably may have thought, like, dude, I'm gonna knee you in the balls in the clinch. You're not gonna touch me. I've been taught to eye poke, spit at your face, throw my keys at you. You're not gonna do anything to me. Okay? Okay? So let's just stop this. But once you train once with jujitsu, it's just like, oh, not that we were duped, right? Like, I still feel trapping is an excellent cheap shot art. If their hands are up, they're at the side, or if they're pissing, then you can trap and blast the shit out of someone. But I feel like with jujitsu, there's so much math to where, and this is where I'm gonna lead into Luta Gear, is it takes people who have trained in striking arts, street defense, and that type of mentality, for me at least, because I'm 44, to trust someone who will put out something that is for protection and maintenance, right? Like Luta Gear. So,
Right.
so with that's where I've been admiring both of you from afar for a long time. It's awesome that you guys have like Russell Peters and so many endorsers. I mean, Claudio Doval. I mean, you have Gordon Ryan, which is great. Let me just paint a little bit more for the grappling enthusiasts about your grappling experience. Neal, since I believe you're in between schools of Jaques, because how long you've been training in jiu-jitsu in general in order for you to get your black belt? Or just in total for jiu-jitsu?
Altogether. So it's 01 to 20. So 19 years.
19 years. For you, Eddie, the totality with breaks for your jiu-jitsu history and career.
I started in 94, so right after the first UFC. And then I stopped for 10 years. And then I recently went back to Jaques, I would say maybe 7 years ago.
Okay. So how do you guys look at the new school people like Claudio Doval and Gordon Ryan? Or, I mean, do you guys look at that and go, that's a different jiu-jitsu, man. That's so much more math than what I know. How do you guys react to these new athletes that are working with you and you guys are sponsoring as far as for their jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, they're like, there's the whole footlock thing. I always thought of that as, old school guys are like, I don't know, there's a translation in Portuguese. It's like the dirty little thief. It's like an easy, cheap shot, oh, get the ankle, but it works. And the new guys, this generation of jiu-jiteros are all over it, and it works for them. So it's like, that what is that saying? Why ignore the other half of the body? So.
Oh, 50%. Why ignore 50%?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That.
Via Dean Lister, through Dean Lister via John Danaher.
That's right. Yeah, Dean Lister is great for the foot attacks. Yeah, it's I think it's going to be always evolving. There's going to be something about it that we we're always learning. I mean, there's a lot that we're getting out of Jaques that you don't get from traditional. I mean, Jaques is a traditional system, but there's just, it goes in depth, in different dynamics of the art that kind of explore, other than physical or geometric or it's kind of almost like kinesthetic. But there's so much more to it and so I always consider myself like a new student anyway.
And for the purple belt who's in the middle of the fire of the new school isms, how do you feel? Are you watching this evolution since you've been involved?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's exciting. The thing I don't understand about footlocks is I remember seeing Gokor do it all the time. And back when he did it, it was kind of, I don't know, hush-hush amongst the schools and stuff.
And taboo.
But yeah, but he's like killing everybody. He's like, what? Well, and then I kind of just put it aside and just, did the training. And now the footlock stuff's coming back. I'm just like, wait a minute. This guy did it like 10 years ago and nobody was making a big deal out of it. And now I don't know if there's been alterations to it or whatever, but I mean, I remember specifically going to a tournament. This is back when nobody was going to tournaments, and the seats were empty, and it took forever. But I think he was actually participating, and he was, I think, tapping everybody out. And so I saw that super early on, and then to see it kind of rise again, and I think it's cool that it's rising. But I think back then the biggest excuse was, oh, we don't train because you get injured. You get injured before you feel the pain, and that's what I was told. And then, oh, okay, I get it. And then I kind of never revisited that. But now to see it, the resurgence of it, and the Danaher Death Squad and all that, I think it's cool. I think it has to evolve. But for me, being an old guy that can't remember things very well, I'm just like, are you serious? I got to remember all these new techniques and all this. They're doing barambolos and all this stuff. And like, oh my God, how am I going to deal with all this stuff? I can't even barely remember the stuff that I've been taught already. But it is exciting. And being a creative person, I think it's so cool that a sport can actually evolve and create new things to use and for your arsenal. It's amazing. There's nothing like it. It's so cool. It's like, basketball is pretty much the same as it's been, but man, if they could have completely new things happen, that, I mean, I just think that's why I love it so much, is there's still areas to invent and create, and everybody's body's different and everybody has a different game. I mean, Eddie Bravo, I mean, just a whole new system, but I'm super excited about it. And I love these kind of athletes that are, pushing the boundaries and doing crazy new stuff. So it keeps it exciting. And that's why I think the sport just continues to grow.
So it sounds like at Cas Magda, you guys were so busy and striking, you guys were training at the same time, but never met. So how did you guys meet at Jean-Jacques? Was it just like one of those, hey, let's spar, and then you guys built a chemistry conversation? How did that come about?
You want me to take it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so Jean-Jacques, like any other jiu-jitsu gym, you're like a family. Everybody, you go there, you see the guys you roll with often more times than your family, probably similar to going to work and your workmates. So you always form a bond. And I was going enough, and I kind of knew Neal, didn't know him that well. We sparred one time, and then my finger got injured. And my ring finger kind of went sideways as I was in guard, and he jumped over. His knee like hit my finger. I was like, ah, oh. And that was the start of Luta Gear. And I went to an orthopedic doctor, and he buddy taped my finger. And so I came back to training, taping my finger. I'm like, I'm not gonna tape my finger every time I train. So being in special effects and stuff, we have fabricators and people that work with fabrics and clothing and costuming. So I had them sew up this little neoprene kind of sleeve thing. And then I came back to train, and this one guy was like, what is that? What are you wearing? And I'm like, oh, it's this little thing that I had made. He's like, you can't buy that? I'm like, no. And he's like, well, I'm a lawyer, and if you don't market that thing, I'm going to steal your idea and patent it. I'm like, oh, and he was being nice about it. He's basically trying to urge me. So I immediately thought, I'm going to go to Neal and see if he wants to help, spawn this thing and start it. So I said, hey, Neal, do you want to help do this? You want to form a company? Because I'm super busy, with other things, and it'd be tough for me to do it on my own. And I said, and besides, it'd make a great story. If this were ever successful, we could, go on interviews and tell people how we started the company. And Neal was like, yeah, sure, cool. So and then from that day on, we just became like brothers, because we had to talk to each other every day. And and it's such a wonderful relationship, and we really complement each other. So that's my side of the story.
Yeah. We went through several prototypes over the years. The first one, I still have the email of Eddie's first one that he has has the drawing of the girls at his special effects place that they put together, and it was really cool because it wasn't like you had an answer right away. It wasn't like it was already made. We had to fine tune it and make it so that the material was tight enough that it did its job. It wasn't that the neoprene didn't lose its elasticity, that the tab was long but not too long, or you know, it was a fun process. I mean, once we finally finalized the design and you know, all the little details and stuff, you know, it was like, okay, now we can sell it. What do you think?
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize too, that was such an important part, because when I had made the prototype, it was super thin neoprene and all this stuff. And then Neal, I think next to his business, there was a glove manufacturer, and he started collaborating with that guy. And then he brought back the finalized prototype, and it was totally different. It felt so good. Felt tight. It felt strong. So he really, you know, brought it home, and it was like, wow, this is a product. This feels good. So that was such an important part of it.
So I got to thank Neal for injuring Eddie for coming out with such a good product. Thank you so much for injuring his fingers, man. That's really generous of you. You could use that like, well, I meant it for some good willed spirited thing in the future. But to educate someone like me, just a white belt here, but is there a particular preference or where you should start taping first? Because I know there's about 4 fingers that you can fully tape and cover. If someone were to buy, is it better to have all 4 taped up, or is there like a pecking order of less injurious taping?
The more common injuries are coming from my experience, are from the ring finger and the middle finger.
Okay.
Which is our first product called a double. A lot of times, people's pinkies stray, in which you can use either the deuce or the triple. And sometimes people use the triple for the index, ring, and middle. But you know, our staple product is always the double. Yeah, what's that?
I was just commenting on your black belt fingers.
This is Lords of the Rings fingers, bro.
Yeah.
Frodo been through some war.
Yeah. Years before Luta Gear was invented, unfortunately.
They've got big knuckles. No.
I'm sorry, Neal.
No, it's okay. So now we also have this thing called the quad, which is, you know, you can do all 4 fingers, which is almost like your thumbs are free, and it keeps your fingers together. Like some days wearing the double is enough, but then also I might get my pinky caught in something, and then I'll use the triple. As far as my personal preference, I'll go double on the left and triple on the right. That's just me. But everybody's a little bit different depending on how your finger needs are.
Yeah, I use the quad. I found, you know, I started with the double, then I went to triple. I found that any finger that was not covered got injured. So to me, it's like, I'm just going to go for the quad. Much like Russell Peters recently was talking about on the Joe Rogan show.
The one day.
Huh?
Yeah,
that's right. The one day.
You saw that. That's right.
Oh, yeah. The one day he didn't wear it. Yeah. And that's sure enough, that's similar to my experience. It's like whatever I left uncovered was prone to injury. So I'm just like, oh, screw this. I'm gonna wear my quads, you know. So
yeah.
Okay. Well, because the reason why I ask is I know since you guys are the creators, and again, I am only a white belt, but if you have one more active limb and gripping hand versus another one, which Neal, thank you so much for breaking that down, because there's one hand that you only prefer 2 or 3, and one hand you prefer 3 or 4. Without trying to be so calculus about this, if you had a more active hand, does that one require more taping or less taping? Or how would you guys advise someone who's looking at your website right now, aside from the other awesome gear that you guys have? But let's say we're talking about tape centricity right now.
I think actually it has something more to do with how your brain fires signals to your fingers.
Mm.
Sometimes a person might reach for something and their brain doesn't say, pinky, go with it. Or, or sometimes it says, okay, all four fingers do the same thing. And when sometimes a finger might stray. And so I think it's not a one size fits all sort of recommendation thing. Everybody's body will do something a little bit different. And that's why we have all these products, so that kind of, on the day that you injure your pinky, get a triple or a deuce, or if you're just the index and middle finger that's always hurting you, get the double, So, yeah, it's kind of interesting, and it's kind of like how we all develop different jiu-jitsu games, is that we all have tendencies to move with strength in certain areas of our body, and some we have more balance, and some, it's a mixed bag. So everybody's different.
Okay.
Anything to add to that, Eddie? Is that pretty much on point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody differs. I mean, everybody has a different way of wearing it. Buchecha comes to mind. We actually, he was introduced to our product in the United Arab Emirates by a guy that purchased our product out there. So
80cc.
Yeah, one of the sheiks, I guess. One of his was it Noriega's gym in Abu Dhabi or UAE.
Let me see.
We suddenly saw a video of him wearing it, or a picture of him.
Nogueira.
Like, whoa!
What was the Nogueira gym in Abu Dhabi?
Oh, okay.
Abu Dhabi, UAE. I know. And then I'm slow to think of these names, but I know that but it's Nogueira.
Yeah, but Leo Vieira goes there and teaches, and the sheik invites him out and stuff. But my point is that we saw him, and he usually tapes these two fingers. So, when he wore our product, it was like these two fingers, that's all. So that was very much how he usually tapes his fingers. So however a person usually will tape is a good indication of how they like that combination of digits to be together. So
that's good to know, because for someone like me who's going on to your website, then I go, well, should I go to 4? Should I go with the deuce? So it's good that we're getting that information. No, we'll go back to the human condition part now. Since you guys are partners, when you guys started this endeavor, because I know what it's like, because if you start a radio show or a podcast, you talk about it every single day, multiple times a day. Do you guys stop training now, since you guys are like, dude, we're so married to each other? We talk about Luta Gear. Dude, I'm not going to roll with you at all anymore. Or did you guys end up rolling more together?
I'd say more. It was almost like we're having our business meetings while we're rolling.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was like when we see each other on the mats, when we train, there's always something to talk about business.
Sure.
I don't know. It's like we tried to do it on the phone. I mean, we both have very busy day jobs, like super busy. And every time we talk on the phone, we always get cut off because he's going through a canyon or something. We can't even complete a thought. So we find, or me personally, I find that the most productive time is at training, because we're going to be there at least 3 times a week or more. And then, he'll say something about this idea or that idea. We'll have a meeting about it. Oh, sponsorship, this, that. And, when we disagree, then we roll.
Yeah. Right. You always got to always save a round for Eddie. That's how I do it. If I show up and there's like all these people I want to train with, I always, I've got Eddie in my list of people to train with that day. He's there.
And we're actually really, our personalities gel really well. And I think, and I love Neal. It's like he's become this guy, at a certain age, you think you're not going to form any more kind of deep connecting relationships.
Sure.
You have your grade school friends, you have your family, you have your coworkers, that you meet. But Neal came late in my life, and man, he's like family. So
he's my brother.
Really
Eddie's my brother. Yeah, really we talk about everything. Yeah. Talk about. Eddie taught me how to be an investor. Which is the big thing, because a guy like me needs to know stuff like that. Anyway.
Yeah,
Well, funny enough,
totally.
your brother does it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but sometimes, Neil, you listen to outside people before you're the closest degree of separation, right? So you
Right.
need someone outside like Eddie, who's now become like your brother. So
That's
yeah, you
right.
need that, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it
Uh,
more like parallel thinking, or is it more like opposite ends? That's why it works, or is it a combination of both?
well, it's a combination of both. A lot of what's parallel is our objectives.
Okay.
What's our ideas are the ones that are split. But that's good because we know that our ideas don't have to be, um, whatever it is that we have ideas, different ideas about doing things. But at the end of the day, we want the same thing to happen. We want success for Luta Gear. So we don't push necessarily to have one thing a certain way. It's a good it's like an ongoing harmonious conversation. So
That's hard to find, fellas.
yeah.
I've been through the gambit of like radio hosts, some due to my inexperience, the way I act, some to them. So it's good that when you guys can actually find someone you have actual, hey, it's about the product, not me. So we say
Right.
in radio, it's about the audience, not about us. You know, that's a really powerful thing.
Yeah,
Um,
the cool thing about it is we never let our egos get in the way. And Neil will come up with the craziest idea, but I never put it down. Right? We try it. You know what I mean? I always open-minded, try it. I'll come up with a crazy idea. I was like, let's try it. We're very open-minded, complementary to each other. And that's what's so cool about it, I think. So
Yeah. We encourage crazy ideas between each other because
yeah.
that's the stuff that makes it work.
right. Can you guys spare a few more minutes? Like
Yeah.
15, 20 more minutes? Is that okay
Yep.
with both your schedules? Cool. A lot of people, because it's such a rancid world of content creation, like you guys are also involved in projects. Now we'll talk about the first one that I knew about that you guys were putting out was the Garrett Scott story about jujitsu. How involved were you guys with those projects?
Very. That kind of spawned from well, I've been in the movie business for all of my life, and most people that are in the movie business also made movies as children, for hobbies or whatnot. So I think Neil and I were talking about marketing ideas and stuff, and maybe commercials and stuff. And then the Garrett Scott story, I think he was already using our product, Neil, and he liked it. And then I remember having lunch with my wife, Joanna, and she was saying, oh, this MMA guy, he's deaf, he likes your product. And then she suddenly said, deaf people communicate with their fingers. Your product is about fingers. And it kind of started off from there, like, oh yeah. And it started just going. And I think I had a talk with Neil and say, hey, Neil, what if we did something? And all I was thinking about was at the end that he would sign Luta Gear, with his hands. And it just kind of grew from that. And Neil's like, yeah, what if we, made a biography or did something, expanded it. And I think it started there or something and grew into this piece that was, it wasn't going to be a commercial by any means, and we wanted to really showcase Garrett and his incredible life and his challenges. And, he just happened to like the product and wear the stuff too, so that's kind of how it came about.
For you, Neil, what was it new or how much did you have to endure mentally? Because I do video projects and it's a mother to handle, man. It's
I
a
have to
lot.
give all the credit to Eddie on that because we did. I don't know much about making films or videos, um, but we did collaborate on a lot of the subject ideas. Or Garrett Scott. I mean, it is an inspiration. The movie itself is an inspiration to people that that feel like they've been born with, or he wasn't born with it. He actually lost his hearing as a baby. But people that are different they have different gifts and handicaps. What's the word? Not that word, handicap, but something. There's something about them that makes them a little bit different, and it's one of those movies or short films that show you, hey, doesn't mean that you can't do this or you can't learn jujitsu, because a lot of times your professor has to talk to you But if Garrett Scott can do it and he's hearing impaired, there's no reason why other people can't train jiu-jitsu, can't learn it. You know, I've heard of a blind grappler, and I think it's a very kinesthetic process and listening process. And with Garrett, I know a lot of it was his visual and kinesthetic learning as well. So
Yeah, what's cool is that I remember when we were talking about it, Neal and I were just getting to know each other and getting to know each other better and so on. And then I was trying to explain to him how, well connected I was in the film industry, meaning I know editors, I know cameramen, I work in the industry. So I could just imagine that he's like, okay, Eddie, you're crazy. And I don't know, I've never seen you make a film or whatever. He didn't know that side of me. And just that he trusted it. But Neal has a wealth of MMA knowledge and fighter knowledge. And he had so much he always knows, hey, you should talk to this guy. We should do this. We should interject this or show that. So he always has that extra knowledge that he kind of sprinkles on top of all the projects. It's like, oh yeah. I mean, Neal found our first sponsor, Kevin Casey. And I was like, oh really? He uses our product? Wow. He's like,
yeah,
hey, we should sponsor. I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. Sponsor an athlete? Wow. So Neal always has these really creative ideas and huge depth of knowledge with fighters. Like he knows everybody too, and he's very well connected. Like we'll go to a tournament, hey Neal, it's just like everybody's saying hi to him. Very cool. Besides being the executive producer and putting the money into the film and all that stuff. So
yeah, for the listening audience, and if you guys are going to be viewing this on whichever platform this is released on, also, Garrett was I mean, there's so much that you can admire just because he's deaf, right? Was there anything new once post-production hit that you re-admired about Garrett that you go, I didn't think about that, but because I shot this production, I found more stuff to admire about Garrett Scott?
Absolutely. And in the deaf community in general, like I was oblivious to it, the deaf community, they don't see themselves as having a handicap. They think of it as another language, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
That was one of the main things I learned, which was beautiful. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Another thing I learned is a lot of people learn things from kind of secondary sensors, right? So for instance, you're washing the dishes and you're listening to the radio and you hear the news report. You're washing dishes, but you learn what happened that day in the news or whatever because you're absorbing it through a secondary process. Deaf people don't have that. And, he had some funny anecdotal stories about certain incidences like that. And they have to be very direct about things, because they, like I said, they can't hear the television going on in the background. They can't hear your mother calling you or something. So, those things are where they're not going to be able to learn any new information from. So everything has to be like right in front of you. Okay, it's learning time. It's very direct. He was telling me a story about how his friend would always talk about, I think like Tom or something. And Tom this, Tom that. Years later, he never knew Tom was a cat. It was a family pet. He goes, you name your pets? Like he didn't know that. I was like, wow, that's so cool. So then I think he ran home to his mom. He says, did you know Tom was a cat? It was a funny story. But yeah, it's just funny the things we take for granted and how we interpret things in the world with all of our senses.
Yeah. The Garrett Scott story was excellent. I think that a lot of us take for granted our ability to hear, and kind of really paying attention to the short film of Garrett and the story of Garrett Scott. It's kind of like it opens up your eyes to another dimension that's kind of like you don't get a chance to taste. You don't get a chance to understand. So it was really cool that it was a really cool story. We're happy about that.
Yeah, and it's amazing for me to let you guys know in this moment. I did not know that deaf people found themselves like, yo, this is like a slang. This is like addiction. This is like another language. Okay, don't don't do that. You know, we're something else, dude. We're special. You know, we have our own thing. That's how they felt about it, which is good to hear. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I'm just wanted to add in, they're so proud that they speak this other language that, and this is probably a personal thing, but when they have a child, they hope that it's born deaf, you know, so that they can speak to it, and that's how much they like their language and their secret little world and stuff. So it's not by any means anything that is negative. And while we were shooting it, they said they hope that doctors would be educated so that if a child is born deaf, the doctor is not like somber and it's a negative thing. It's like, well, parents, you're going to learn another language. You know, that's how they put it. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it's like, it's a mixed baby. He's Hawaiian, Filipino, white. Okay,
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
Don't look too much into it. All right. We just want another Hawaiian Portuguese baby. That's it.
Exactly.
You know, so that's cool. I know we can't relinquish as much, so we can give a little bit of a soup and salad to your next project, which is with Jean-Jacques Machado. And before we touch on that, I praise Jean-Jacques so much because, you know, with as I was mentioning with Eddie, I have 6 herniated discs on my neck. Plus, I'm diabetic, so I'm recurring like frozen shoulder and adhesive capsulitis, which is why I barely train. Jean-Jacques was the only. I don't say this to disparage the other schools or other instructors, but he's the guy that goes, okay, go train with Charles. Be careful, he has a neck injury. Like, he was constantly on top of people, caring for me, right? So I wanted to, maybe you guys can share a little bit of something about Jean-Jacques that people who don't train with JJ, that they don't know, like how awesome he is, or any compliments that you guys want to lob to the viewers and listening audience about JJ that they may not know either.
Yeah, there's
I'm sure it's a laundry list, but
there's a laundry list. But to touch on something, like one of the things that I appreciate the most is that there's it's not just techniques. If I really simplify it in a statement, it's not just techniques. It's body placement, body dynamics. It's a little bit of psychology. It's, you know, and all these things. You know, when you're learning jiu-jitsu from Jean-Jacques, it's you have to keep your eyes and ears, you know, attentive, open, and listening, because you'll miss some really good stuff. It's easy to miss really cool things because there's like great information just flying in and out of the mat, and it's like, wow, you just said that. So, you know,
the one thing that I was learning as, you know, we're working on this next project with him, and I got to spend a lot of time with him, and there were so many questions I had, because he's kind of mysterious too. He doesn't really open up about his personal life or things. I mean, you can find things online and find bits and pieces of his story, but our next project is really going to kind of blow that open, and I think that's what's so cool. And so, for instance, one thing that I always wondered about is, like, on his Instagram, he'll share a lot of this philosophy and stuff. You know, it's like, you know, if you didn't achieve your dreams today, you know, take a breath and try again. There's, you know, a lot of philosophical stuff, a lot of positive energy. I was wondering, does he copy these quotes from somewhere? Does he post them? Is this from him, you know? And so recently we were shooting stuff with him, so I got to spend a lot of time with him on the airplane and so on, and talk to him. He is sharp, very sharp mind, very deep thinker, thinks about a lot of stuff. Very fair, presents, you know, controversial issues from both sides, but no ego. It's like you can talk to him, you can ask him about anything. He's so down to earth and cool to talk about it, and very educational. Like, he thinks about things in a way that I don't necessarily think about. So, and we talk about everything, like life goals, money, women, children, family, and it's he has amazing perspective on all of this, and he wasn't necessarily given 100% of his faculties to start with either. You know, he started at what some may consider a disadvantage, but nobody around him supported that he was born with a disadvantage, and that was the mentality. And he grew up not knowing he was at a disadvantage, and that's what's so cool and inspiring. And I think through our next project, people will get to learn a lot more about him. So
Yeah, you know how Anthony Bourdain christened Philippines the best pork ever? Like Jean-Jacques Machado is like the best 40 and up school ever. Like
Yeah.
Yoshi, like I look at him and be like, you? Okay, go make me a sushi roll. And he'll beat the shit out of me in 2.1 seconds. You know, he'll let me pass his guard, then boom, there goes his Japanese shins on my neck. And then, okay, I posted my arm out, boom, it's wrapped up and it's in a reverse arm bar. Okay, all right, Yoshi, my bad.
He'll catch you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, there's just so many killers, but it's because I feel like jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of boxing-isms behind it, meaning they're just athletes, so they're just kill. With a JJ's, I don't know you guys, but I feel like there's always a kinship now that I can mention to you guys. I trained there for almost a year. You know, it's just, okay, it's like fraternal. And it's like Jeep drivers or Bronco drivers. It's like, hey, you know, so I think that's one thing that's starting to get lost, or at least it's separating, where this is the friendly school. There's killers there, but you know, we can barbecue together too.
Right.
You know, so that's a great thing. I know I've taken a lot of your time, guys.
No
possibly like with Robert Drysdale, we can do a part 2 once the project is released. We can talk about it some more and promote it some more. That would be awesome. Where can they find Luta Gear and you guys if they had any personal questions, like, hey, like, you kind of like the advice I asked, whether if it's a tour or 4 or anywhere where they can get a hold of you guys?
I would say we're on Amazon. Also, just the website is always a good source. Lutagear.com, LUTAGEAR.com.
Nice.
And we're on Instagram, Luta Gear Official.
Yeah, Luta Gear Official on Instagram. That's a great source. What else?
So far, no one's sweated you guys for cultural appropriation for using luta as a word, right? Thank God fighters are all okay-minded and they're not like Antifa rebels, right?
Yeah. I gotta say it was in getting the name. You couldn't really trade. You could trademark your logo, but you can't say Luta belongs to you because it's a word.
Sure.
It's not a name. It's a word. It's in fight, but it's in Portuguese. So, you know, you can say Luta Gear, put it together, and you can trademark that. But it was a whole lot of a big learning process, and you know what you can actually call yours.
No, this whole thing is, I mean, I'm sure many people have water cooler discussions at work. It's like, oh, we should do this. We should start a business. Oh, I have this idea for a product. And, you know, that's the easy part. That's the fun part. But having the discipline to go through with all of the stuff you have to go through, my God, just, you know, incorporating the name and the trademarking, because we have artwork, kind of, you know, logos and all that stuff, trademarking that stuff. I mean, just the legal fee, trying to knock off your product, and it's such a learning curve, and it's so much more work than you expected. Making the product and coming with ideas like this. Sure. The rest of it's, you know, it's no wonder a lot of things don't get off the ground and they just stay ideas and so on. But it's really the discipline and tenacity you have to keep moving forward. And I think that's what our jiu-jitsu experience kind of teaches us too, patience and keep going forward. I mean, and without a brother like Neal, where we can just vent to each other and
break your fingers.
Yeah, exactly. No, but we have a lot of great experiences. We're just giggling like little girls. It's just like, oh my God, Gordon Ryan. Oh my God.
Luta Gear is our
Claudia
playground.
Duvall.
Yeah.
Did you see Buchecha? Are we going to see Buchecha today? It's like, we're big nerds for this stuff and very passionate about it. Like going to train at Black House. Oh my God, that's huge.
Yeah. For a while, we were visiting academies and promoting our product, and we just haven't. We should get back into that maybe after this COVID thing.
Yeah.
We'll go back to like going in and visit academies and training with everybody and then promoting our product a little bit. But that was fun too with the 10th Planet. And
yeah.
You have a list of people we got to visit.
But that's part of the journey, and those are the great experiences that we share. But there's a lot of work, a lot of our calls and stuff with each other is like making tough decisions on things. And so we, I think relying on each other has helped get us this far, and sharing in the joys and getting frustrated and pissed off when things aren't working out. And I think we had a recent, we found this counterfeit item, and I was so happy about it, actually. So being the designer, I was like, wow, somebody liked it enough to
imitation
rip it off.
Yeah.
But,
we finally were able to legally shut him down, and it was. I was pissed. I was like, sign me up. Find out where he's competing, because I'll go.
Totally.
I won't let go.
Well, I'll tell you, the name Luta Gear depicts like knowledge. It depicts like a very rich, solidified love for martial arts. So I'm glad, you guys got to paint the picture for the listening audience, a bit of your back. I feel like I could talk to you guys and do a Joe Rogan episode, to be honest with you, like a full 3-hour blast of like martial arts and historical talk. I feel like the product is also, one of those things that's Mercedes Maybach level. It's well done. I'm looking forward to buying a few items from you guys, and I really, 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 really appreciate the time, in sharing a little bit of your life story, and also, the projects that are upcoming, and also the products that you guys are slanging right now. It's awesome.
Thank you for having us, Charles.
Yeah. So part 2, I'm gonna hold you guys to that.
Okay, we're on.
Absolutely.
Once the project is released, so we'll keep in touch behind the scenes.
Hey Charles, I know you're trying to be, tiptoe around it, but we can talk about it a little bit if you want.
Oh, okay.
Just introduce it, and
You guys still have some time?
Yeah.
4 minutes.
Okay, well, let's talk about it then, because why don't you guys brief me on? Let's not discuss why, because I think we all know that Jaques is such a giant legend, right? But but that, as to maybe what spawned it, what and what gears took place to go, what, fuck it, let's do it.
So we were finishing up the Garrett Scott story, and much to the credit to my co-director CJ Sato, who edited the film, I decided to throw it into some film festivals, right? Just let's see what happens. And we ended up winning 10 awards for it. And we ended up there. They had this big showing in Hollywood. It was a short film. So we entered it into Holly Shorts, and they had this big festival where they premiered it along with other documentaries and shorts and so on. And Neal and I got our little taste of paparazzi and stuff, and it was fun,
Yeah.
So I think there was like a side conversation. Hey, what should we do next, Neal? And we both thought, well, we should do our master, right? Jaques, like he's supported Luta Gear from the very beginning, just never asked for anything in return. He's like, wow, you made this product. What do you need me to do? You want to put on Instagram? And they're like, oh, well, would you do a photo shoot with for us? And I think that got us much quicker out into the public eye. Having Jaques put your product on. The BJJ community is incredible. I don't care what people say about Gordon Ryan. Him and Gary Tonin were at a seminar that we went to. He knew that we were making a product or whatever. He just threw that thing on.
Yeah.
He put on
a
our
couple
t-shirt.
of real guys. Really cool guys.
I think all the stuff they say is just for show, you know, and cause controversy. So I'll never forget that. So generous of Gordon and Gary. But Jean-Jacques, you know, kicked us off, you know, and we did like super professional photo shoots with him and put him in magazines and all this stuff. And he was just so cool about it and down to earth. So yeah, natural next subject. So our next subject basically is, the film's called Relentless, and it's the Jean-Jacques Machado story. And it was slated for a 2020 release later this year, but with COVID, that's kind of put a dent into a lot of our plans. We've shot about, I would say, 50-60% of it. But yeah, we're not totally sure of the release date yet, but we're trying to get it out sooner rather than later, especially if there's a second wave of COVID and people stuck at home. You know, it'd be perfect for them to have something to watch and so on. And Jean-Jacques feels the same way. So yeah, that's the next thing that we're doing.
Anything to add to that, Neal, as to why, maybe at least?
I mean, pretty much said it all. Yeah.
Well, because, you know, with Jean-Jacques, a lot of people, you know, even people in our age group, we forget because it's such a fast-paced social media world now. You know, with Master Jean-Jacques, he's just, I mean, he deserves all the accolades. Not that the other Machado brothers don't, but Jean-Jacques is just that special.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, think about the empire that Eddie built with 10th Planet, and that all happened underneath Jean-Jacques' tutelage. You know, Eddie did his win, and all of it just came from learning from Jean-Jacques. So
yeah, and Jean-Jacques is so open and helpful with people, as we're getting to experience firsthand with this product. You know, I could just picture him with Eddie, and Eddie's like, Jean-Jacques like seeing him develop this thing, and all he's doing is supporting him. It's like, no, do this, no, put your foot here. Yeah, this would work better here. Like, I could totally see how somebody like Eddie Bravo probably couldn't have created his empire at a different school or something. You know, it's like, you got to have the open-heartedness of Jean-Jacques, open-mindedness, the support that with his, you know, without his personality, Jean-Jacques being the way he is, I don't know that there could have been an Eddie Bravo, you know. So that's why he's so incredible. And I think that's a lot of the reason why we need to see this film. You know, it's not just about his hand. You see everything, you know, there's so much media out there, the hand. Well, what's everything else like, you know?
Sure.
That's what's going to be really interesting. So
there's several layers. That goes beyond the icing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know, I'm shooting and I get to see firsthand what's going on. And yeah, there's a lot of really great story there, you know, and I'm glad we can tell it. So.
Well, awesome. I mean, I think a lot of people are starting to involve themselves in jiu-jitsu. I'm talking to this guy. I'll send you guys a link to this project I was talking to Eddie about, Neal, where I followed like the Netflix specs for cameras and audio and all that. So I'll probably need your input, both of your input for that. But yeah, I'm excited that the content is also under good hands, experienced people, finger breakers like Neal, monster makers like Eddie. You know, it's such a beautiful creative asset to be put out there. So like you guys are so many layers to Luta Gear, right? You know, it's awesome. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I just thought of this now. I know it's kind of later in like this story, but
sure.
Jean-Jacques has his roots come with it a great history, which is a really intriguing part of the story. And it just also talks about history of jiu-jitsu too. So there's a lot of that in there that you got to see.
Ah, okay. Okay. Because the Machados, I interviewed Higan Machado, man. I mean, he had a lot of off mic stuff.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
he didn't want to put on, on air. It's like, dude, this Machado last name, we had some problems, man, because we were doing jujitsu. And I'll keep it at that.
Right.
So
Great
it's
history.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, rich, very rich, right? So, well, thanks again, you guys. It goes to show that we were supposed to end it like 11 minutes ago, but you guys owe me another pod.
Yes,
Good,
you got
man.
it.
Awesome. All right, signing off for right now. Thank you guys so much. LutaGear.com. Go support. Thanks.
Thank you, Charles.
Thanks, Charles.